And welcome to the Cover 3 radio show here on EC Radio. My name is Cody, also go by Shaq. And today we are here for our last in-studio session of the semester. I go home Thursday. We're out of here for winter break, Christmas break, whatever. So last in-studio session we have here. Follow on EC Radio or follow on YouTube at the Cover 3 radio show. Much the same. I always live stream at least the solo ones. If you are familiar with the show, we do have guests every once in a while. So the solo ones, it's easier to stream. So I stream those ones, and I will be streaming once a week, roughly, on Tuesdays when I'm off for vacation. It won't be next Tuesday because next Tuesday is Christmas, and that's for family and whatnot. That's what they tell me. So we will take a break next week, and then the week after that, we should be all good to go. Good to go. So tonight we're going to have a little bit of fun. Not much is going on. There was an NBA trade earlier this week. Trevor Ariza goes from Phoenix to Washington Wizards, and the Wizards and the Phoenix Suns in turn get Kelly Oubre and Austin Rivers. Suns did cut Austin Rivers, which kind of doesn't make a lot of sense because they needed a point guard. He needs a guard who can handle the ball. But anyway, I guess they're entrusting Devin Booker with all of that good stuff. So yeah, it's one of those trades where the Wizards aren't really competing. And I don't know if they think they're still competing or whatever. And they're getting a good player. Maybe the Suns just didn't want Ariza getting bought out and then going to the Lakers, or the Rockets, which has been sort of rumored throughout the last few weeks. Went to the Wizards. The Wizards can get on a run. Ariza's a good piece to have on a playoff caliber team. Been there, done that. He's a really solid piece. And Oubre wasn't really struggling to find sort of his role. I think 2 years ago, last year, he had like a good defined role. Then after that, the Otto Porter started becoming a little bit more. Washington is just a mess right now. So anyway, it's like a C minus for both teams. I guess Oubre has upside, especially defensively, and Phoenix needs all the pieces that can potentially be something as much as they can get. And Washington gets something in case things go down. So, tonight we are doing my personal picks for the top 10 players in NBA history. Now, this is something that I've had on the back burner in case nothing really is happening. And today, nothing really is happening. No really huge MLB signings. Me and Liam went over that last week. So if you caught that last week's episode, it was one of my favorite episodes we've done. I got to talk with Liam. Liam will definitely be back come opening day. 100 days until opening day. So we're already counting down to baseball again. So Liam will definitely be on air later this year. Talk about that. Obviously, Brian and Joe are staples on the show as well. So nothing really going on in the world of baseball. Football is where it's at. Chargers right now look pretty good. I did predict the Chargers to be a contender before Thanksgiving. So we'll probably recap that later on. Probably when we get back right after college football will be on. And then it'll be like the last week of playoffs come that time. So a lot of stuff to cover, but not right now. Today is going to be purely top 10 players in NBA history. Now my list I'm not even 20 years old. A lot of these players I didn't get a chance to see, and the players I did get a chance to see, I've only seen the last few years of. So this list is a lot on numbers, watching documentaries, watching old games. I feel like I have a pretty good basketball knowledge. So anyway, we're going to go quickly over my top 20, and then the top 10 we're going to get in some more in depth. So I have number 20, Dirk Nowitzki, still playing right now, one of the greatest scorers of all time. No matter where on the court, you have to watch him. Younger Dirk was a problem. I got to see a lot of older Dirk. He basically single-handedly, him and Jason Terry took down Miami Heat squad that was looking like one of the best teams of all time in 2011. 19, Moses Malone, great stat player. Won in Philadelphia with Dr. J, but really was sort of more of a stat player. There was a quote by him that said, "I used to miss intentionally at the rim so I get my offensive rebound numbers up." That's a man of the people right there. Isaiah Thomas at 18. Zeke, one of the best point guards of all time, revolutionized the game, very scrappy, a slashing point guard, wasn't a great shooter, but could definitely shoot one toe-to-toe with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, really was stuffed right in the middle between three of the greatest players of all time. And he fought out 2 championships with one of the best teams of all time, the bad boy Detroit Pistons with Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer. Joe Dumars, Mark Aguirre, and the rest. Kevin Garnett, KG, the big ticket, number 17, obviously rocking Boston sports. And right up, you can't see it. Actually, you can see it right there. 2008. I can get my bang right there. 2008. He was probably the majority, the big reason that he changed that team defensively. Was one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA, when he made his way over to the Celtics. Just tremendous offensive player. People don't give him credit for how good of a playmaker he was in his really good years. He was averaging 4 or 5 assists, and for a big man, that's pretty good. Could shoot. Not much the three ball, but sort of he started sort of stretching out bigs and what they are today, shooting threes. Defensively unmatched, intensity, probably the most intense player of all time. Number 16, Elgin Baylor. A lot of people don't sleep on Elgin Baylor. He was a 30-point player, one of the first 30-point players to jump out of a gym, rebounding god. He was the premier player in the NBA, along with Bob Pettit, for a very, very, very long time. Him and Jerry West and Bill Russell all at the same time. They really, really shaped the NBA to what it was in the 60s and sort of gaining popularity. Number 15, Dr. J. Julius Erving, revolutionized the game mostly because of his athleticism. In college, you couldn't dunk, so he used to go up to the rim and just lay it right in. One of the most athletic players of all time. Started in the ABA, moved over to the NBA. A very, very, very solid player. 14, very controversial. I have Kevin Durant, number 14. Hear me out. Looking at the raw numbers, stats-wise, Kevin Durant and Dr. J, they are here. Kevin Durant's even like this, a little bit above Dr. J. Can score from anywhere on the court. Probably the most complete scorer potentially ever. Definitely top 3. If you want to put Larry Bird and Kobe in there as well. I'm not talking about better score than Michael Jordan, but a complete scorer. He could score inside, outside, 3-point range, plethora of moves, 7-footer with handling skills the way he has. It might be a little overzealous putting him this high this early. He is 30 years old. He has been in the league for 12 years, 11 years, 2 rings, and whatever you say about those rings, because he joined the Golden State Warriors, say what you do. But he was a 2-time Finals MVP, 2-time Finals champion, and I love Kevin Durant, and I'm putting him at 14. Number 13, Jerry West. Now, Jerry West is interesting player. People look at him and see 7 finals losses, and yikes, how can you have him that high? The logo was probably the best guard of his era, other than Oscar Robertson, which we'll get to next, actually. I have 12. But in those finals, he averaged 35, 40 points. He just really, him and Elgin Baylor were really great, but you have to go against a team, and all these rings, all these banners right there. Bill Russell, Bob Cousy for about half of them, Sam Jones for most of them, Tommy Heinsohn, John Havlicek for a good handful. You had to go against all-time players all the time. I don't even fault you for losing 7. It's a hit. He could easily be top 10 based off stats alone, but because he never really won, he won that 1 ring with Wilt later on in his career, but really didn't really get it done when his prime was around. Number 12, Oscar Robertson, Mr. Triple-Double himself, great facilitator, great scorer, great rebounder, good defender. He literally Russell Westbrook. Westbrook is Robertson 2.0. Robertson's a little bit taller. But anyway, just pure number standpoint. He won in Milwaukee. He has it. No question, no denying. He's an all-time great. Number 11 is tricky, because I very recently just moved this list around, if I could speak, around just a teeny tad bit. And originally I had Shaquille O'Neal at 11. And I love Shaq, multiple-time champion, one of the most dominant players of all time. I moved Shaq up to 10. And it's because I dropped Wilt Chamberlain from 7 down to 11. And now, with all the numbers that Wilt had, the 50-point season, his 100-point game, 55-rebound game, multiple 50-rebound games, and how just utterly dominant he was, he didn't really win. And when I was looking at I look at the top 10, the common theme was you have multiple-time champions. I believe the 2. Yes. 2 is the lowest number of rings a player has in my top 10. And you can put up the stats, but you really do have to be a winner. And I value winning a lot. And Wilt, obviously, just like Jerry West, had to go up against Bill Russell all the time. People think he dominated Bill Russell, and he put up very, very good numbers against Bill Russell. He put up very, very good numbers against everybody. Here's a fun fact for you. In his 1962 season, in which Wilt Chamberlain dropped 50 points a game, he was held to under 30 twice. Both times against the Celtics. And guess who was guarding him? Bill Russell. So there's a little... No one could stop Wilt, but if you were to choose for one game to one player to give them Wilt the hardest time offensively, then it's Bill Russell, who has just found himself very high up on this list. So those are my 20 to 11 range. Those are sort of how I'm judging players. That's sort of where I think those players belong. And the top 10 is somewhat universal. There are always like 5, 6, 7 players that are in everyone's top 10s because obviously they deserve to be in there. So let's go over in depth where I have players and why. And the first player is my good friend Shaquille O'Neal. Now, Shaq is a Hall of Famer, a 15-time All-Star, 4-time NBA champion, 3 with the Lakers, 1 with the Heat, 3-time All-Defensive member, which is actually really, really low if you think of it. Honestly, that's a lot lower. I thought he would be up there more. A 3-time All-Star Game MVP, the 2000 MVP of the league, 2-time scoring champion, 14-time All-NBA, All-Rookie team in 92-93, 3-time Finals MVP, and the 1992-1993 Rookie of the Year. Career stats of around 24 points per game, 11 rebounds a game, and 2.5 assists. Shot 58% from the field, 52% from the free throw. Had a player efficiency rating of 26.4. Now, right out of the box, Shaquille O'Neal was an absolute force. Aha, we're back on YouTube. Anyway, his first 3 seasons, points per game, 23.4, 29.3, 29.3. He averaged over 26 points per game, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times his first 11 seasons. Like I said, right out the box, this guy was a cheat code. And even in his sort of days where he wasn't the same, right after he was about to leave Los Angeles, his last year in Los Angeles, he averaged 21.5. His first year in Miami, he averaged 23. Second year in Miami, 20. And that was a 31, 32, and 33-year-old Shaq. Obviously, injuries would have plagued him, hurt him a little bit. Rebounding numbers, his first year averaged 14 rebounds a game, which is actually his highest total for rebounds a game. 13, 11, 11, 12.5, 11, 10, 13.6, 12, 12.5, 10.5, 11, 11.5, 10. Absolute monsters. Blocks per game. 3.5, 3, 2.5, 2, 3, 2.5, 1.5, 3. Basically 3, 2, 2.5, 2.5. An absolute tank. And just how dominant he was. There was no player in the NBA that could stop Shaquille O'Neal. Except for Hakeem Olajuwon. But anyway, I digress. He was just the utter dominant force against anybody. His MVP season numbers look like this. Age of 27. 29.7 points per game. 3 blocks per game. 3.8 assists per game. Around 4 assists per game. For big man efficiency Shaq, pretty good. 13.6 rebounds per game. 4.3 offensive rebounds per game. Field goal percentage of .575. He was just an absolute stud. He played 40 minutes per game. He really was just an absolute tank. I have number 10. All the accolades he has. He did have some very, very poor years. Right after he was also 34. Got traded to Phoenix. Was not really the same after that. And then he played one more year in Phoenix. Played in Cleveland. And that 1 year in Boston, and we all try to forget. People forget he was actually kind of effective with Boston. Just that Achilles injury sort of called it quits. And that's where you have Shaquille O'Neal at number 10 on my list. All right, number 9. I have my second favorite player of all time, Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem is a Hall of Famer, 12-time All-Star, 3-time block champion, 12-time All-NBA player, the 84-85 All-Rookie team, 2-time Final MVP, 2-time rebounding champion, 2-time NBA champion, 9-time All-Defensive player, which should have been more, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, which probably should have been more, and the 1993-1994 Most Valuable Player of the League. Career stats in 1,200 games, 22 points, 11 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 51% from the field, 71% from the free throw line with a 23.6 PER, which is player efficiency rating. Hakeem was an absolute stud. Now, it's famous that the Houston Rockets took him at number 1 and Michael Jordan went number 3 in that same draft. But if you really look at Houston at the time, what they needed, what Hakeem was in college, that is not a bad situation at all. Obviously, Michael Jordan is the better player, and we'll get to him maybe a little bit later. But Hakeem Olajuwon was no slouch at all. His first season in the NBA, 21 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 2.7 blocks, 1.7 steals. As it looks like the live stream up here. It looks like the EC radio is not responding, but we'll try to get that back. We're going to stay here on YouTube and continue. Anyway, all types of issues today. Anyway, he came in, and people don't understand, he was a 7-footer who steal numbers. I think he's top 10 all time in steals as well, which is absolutely insane. He had years when he blocked 4.5 shots per game. He had 3 seasons blocking 4 shots per game. 4.3 in 92 and 4.2 in 93. His 1993-4 season, 27.3 points per game, 3.7 blocks, 1.6 steals, 3.6 assists, 12 rebounds. Shot 71% from the field. Shot 53% from the 71 from free throw. 53 from the field, 41 minutes per game, an absolute monster. 2-time champion. He was the only player in the 90s to win a NBA championship other than Michael Jordan. Well, other than after Jordan retired. In that stretch, when Jordan had the three-peat, 2 years off, and Hakeem Olajuwon was the only player to win championships in that time. And he took a 6 seed to the finals the second time around. So he was an absolute force. The post moves. He has the biggest plethora of post moves of all time. I mean, the dream shake is still trying to be replicated today. Not many people do it. He could step out. He could hit a 16-foot jumper. He could do all types of pump spins. He would score whenever he wanted in the paint. And he shut down Shaquille O'Neal, who was coming in. And people say, oh, he was young Shaq. Well, we just look at Shaq's numbers his first 2 years in the league. He was averaging 28 points per game when he was facing Hakeem. And he was much more athletic and just much bigger than Hakeem. Hakeem put him in his place, blocked his shot a few times. Not saying Shaq was only averaging 12 points a game. I think Shaq averaged like 25 points per game or more in that series. But Hakeem Olajuwon deserves number 9 on my list. Number 8 goes to a player who used to wear number 8, and that is Kobe Bryant. Now, Joseph, I know you're sitting there in your chair, on your bed, just going, oh. Listen, Joey, I love you. I know you love Kobe, but Kobe's number 8 for me. And here's why. Obviously, accolades speak for themselves. 18-time All-Star, 5-time NBA champ, 12-time All-Defense, 4-time All-Star Game MVP, 2007-2008 regular season MVP, 2-time scoring champion, 15-time All-NBA, the 96-97 All-Rookie team, and a 2-time Finals MVP. Points per game averages 25, 5.2 rebounds, 4.7 assists, shot 45% from the field, we'll say, and 33% from 3, 84% at the line, 22 PER. Let's dive into Mr. Kobe Bryant. Obviously a phenomenal talent. The Michael Jordan we will ever see, we ever got anywhere. He was an all-star off the bench, his second season at the age of 19. Then right at around 2000, 2001, that's when the legend of Kobe Bryant took off. Averaging 20 points per game in his first season starting in 1998-99. And then after that, it was just all rock star level from there. 22.5, 28.5, 25.2, 30, 24, 27, and then this famed 2006-2007 seasons where he averaged 35.4, 31.6 points. MVP season looked like this: 28.3 points, 1.8 steals, 5.4 assists, 6.3 rebounds, which I think are both career high. Well, not career highs in assists, but career high in rebounds, or second in his career in rebounds. Just absolute force. He shot, let's see his free throw, 84 even from free throw line. 36% from three, 47%. That was an absolutely fantastic year for him. It was an all-star every year but 2 years of his career, and he was an absolute force in nature. Now, there was a little stretch where he did not have the greatest of teams. Right after Shaq left and a lot of the other pieces that they held together, Karl Malone, Gary Payton, Rick Fox, Horace Grant, all those players that were the perfect role players, they all retired, went their separate ways, and weren't on the Lakers anymore. Kobe was carrying a Smush Parker, a player like Kwame Brown, those type of players, to I believe the 6th seed in 2006. And now we're not expecting Kobe to bring that team to the finals, even though LeBron did it. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, he was just an absolute talent. There's the Mamba mentality is something that we will never see ever again, I do not believe. I don't think, as we are back on air for EC Radio, if everyone is just joining back in EC Radio, we're having some issues, very, very windy, so maybe some connection issues. You can find out what you missed on YouTube. We won't go back and recap anyway. We'll recap quick. My top 10 players. We just got into that list. I don't know exactly when the stream cut off. So we're at 10, Shaquille O'Neal, 9, Hakeem Olajuwon, and right now we're talking about Kobe Bryant, number 8. So anyway, with Kobe, he did have those years, and right after he age 34, he was still averaging 27 points per game, which is absolutely phenomenal. 2013. And then that's when the Achilles injury happened and the knee injury happened, and it was just all downhill from there. 13 points, 22 points, 17 points. Was never the same. Only played 6, 35, and 66 games throughout the rest. He had the 60-point game to end out his career, which I watched, which is funny because on the same night, the same time, the Warriors were going for the win record. I believe everybody and their mother was watching Kobe. Even though I never liked Kobe because I was a Celtics fan, he was a Laker. You're not supposed to like that. It's just respect. It's just absolute. He was an absolute player. And say what you want about him being selfish. Say what you want about him not being a team player. He won. He was the guy in 2 championships. He was an absolute phenomenal player, and I'm glad I got to watch him for as long as I did. I wish I got to watch him more. An absolute student of the game, and he finds himself number 8 on the list. Number 7, one of my favorite players of all time, someone I tried to model when I was playing basketball, Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan comes number 7. I know it's up in arms. I have Tim Duncan over Kobe Bryant, but it's not by much. These players are. You could make a case that each of these players is the greatest player of all time, I believe, if you make a case. And they are separated by a hair and maybe a hair and a half, depending on where you are. But this is Tim Duncan's statistics and accolades in his career. 15-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 1997-98 All-Rookie team, and the Rookie of the Year that year as well. 3-time Finals MVP, 2-time regular season MVP, 1999-2000 All-Star Game MVP, 15-time All-Defense, 5-time NBA champ. Points per game look like this: 19, 11, and 3 for points, rebounds, and assists. 50%, 51% roughly from the field, 69, 70% from the free throw line, and 24.2 PER. If you look at Tim Duncan, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame quite soon. I believe his induction is this year. Let's see. No, we still have a couple more years because he retired 2 years ago. But you look at Tim Duncan's numbers, especially in the later half, it's like, well, I was only putting up 15 points per game. Big, and I believe that tweet the other day, and it said Tim Duncan was never out of his prime, even at the age of 38, and I agree with that. Tim Duncan was an absolute force of nature. Dude could do everything you wanted from a big man. He wasn't flashy. He didn't talk to the media. He just did it. He just did it. He just did it. And oh boy, his first year on the scene, 21 points per game and 12 rebounds per game, 3.7 assists, 2.5 blocks. Shot 55% from the field. Second year, 21 as well. He was an MVP 2 times, so I believe it was 2001-02 and then 02-03. Look at those 01-02 season, 26 points per game, 3.7 assists, 2.5 blocks, 13 rebounds basically. Shot 80% from the free throw line, as well as 50% from the field. And then the next year, he also won the MVP, I believe. 23.3 points, 2.9 blocks, 3 blocks basically. He was an absolute force. A lot of people don't forget, because he wasn't that flashy player. He wasn't that talkative player. And he just did the fundamentals. His nickname was Big Fundamental. And no one really I'm not saying no one remembers Tim Duncan, but when you think of all-time great players, you think of Kobe first. You think of Shaq first, because they were bigger, they were flashier, they were the guys. And Tim Duncan really has sacrificed a lot in his career. Greg Popovich, right around, you can see it at least in the numbers. When he hit 30, around this 30, 31, 32, he was averaging 40 minutes per game for a long time. Once he hit 28, he started going to like 33. And 34 and 34. As soon as you hit 32, 33, you see 33 minutes per game, 31 per game, and then a whole bunch of high 20s, 30s. And that was Greg Popovich's way of saying, Tim. And it was the thing. It was turned to Tony Parker's team, as in Tony Parker was the lead focal point on offense. But Tim was still averaging 11 rebounds, 17 points, and still doing his thing. And you can see this in his per 36 numbers. In those per 36 numbers, he was still averaging, if he played all 36 minutes, still averaging 12 and 22. He was averaging better numbers in his age 36 season than he was averaging in his age 24 season. If you look at the per 36s. His age 36 season was one of the best seasons he ever had, at least scoring-wise, and rebounding-wise, and block-wise. 32 years old. This dude, or 36 years old. Tim Duncan, the only thing holding Tim Duncan back was Greg Popovich. And Greg Popovich didn't hold Tim back. He rested Tim Duncan. He made Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, be the focal point of their offense so Timmy could conserve more energy and he could ball out in the playoffs. And ball out in the playoffs that he do. Look at these defensive ratings. Only 3 times in his career he went over the 100 mark. And I believe Rudy Gobert was last year's Defensive Player of the Year at a defensive rating of 101. That was the highest Tim Duncan ever put up in a season. Defensive ratings 95, 91, 95, 94, 96, 94, 89, 93, 94, 94, 97, 100, 101, 100. Age 36, 35, 99. Age 36, the best defensive rating in the entire league at 95. And his offensive rating was great. 1 year, he put up 112 offensive rating and a 93 defensive rating. So basically, the lower the number defensively and the higher the number offensively, that's where you want to be. So you want to be lower defensively, higher offensively. That's absolutely insane. He was just an absolute tank, and like I said, I don't believe he ever left his prime. He never had not a prime. It looks like the stream just redid it again. Anyway, here we are. We're going to number 6. So that's number 7, Tim Duncan. Let's recap the list for people who are now just again doing the stream. It looks like the stream is having some issues. Like I said, it is windy over here. So if you do want to follow along on YouTube, where the live stream has been going pretty good so far, we have 2 people in there right now. Go to the Cover 3 radio show on YouTube. Come hang out. Same thing. You see my ugly face while I go over all of this as well. So to recap the top 10 list, you have Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kobe Bryant, and Tim Duncan. Now we are going to number 6, my favorite player of all time, Bill Russell. Now, William Felton Bill Russell. as a Hall of Famer, 12-time All-Star, 11-time NBA champ, 1968-69 All-Defensive Team, and Defensive Player of the Years, and the defensive team that happened until last year. So he would have had like 14 Defensive Player of the Years, even though he only played 13 seasons. 5-time MVP, 4-time rebounding champ, 11-time All-Star, All-NBA, and the 62-63 All-Star Game MVP. His points per game, rebounds, and assist numbers look like 15.1, 22.5, and 4.3. Shot 44% from the field, 56.1% from the free throw line, and 18.9 PER. Now, Bill Russell is a very curious case in the NBA, and especially me being new to Twitter. By the way, follow the Twitter at _cover_3. I see a lot of different takes on Bill Russell, whether they're putting him in the top 5, which I had him number 2 for the longest time, just because he's my favorite player and because of all the championships. Even had him number 1 for, I think, like 8th grade. I was like, he won 11. Anyway, but you see him a lot way down the list because he wasn't a good offensive player. He was a pretty good offensive player. As you mentioned, like 4 assists is very, 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 very good for a big man to have. He averaged 4.3 for his entire career. He was a great assist getter, especially in a time period where they didn't keep track of Didn't keep track of blocks or steals. He would have been one of the greatest steal getter shot blockers. He was one of the better shot blockers in NBA history, but he definitely would have seasons of 4, even 5 shots blocked per game. His steal numbers would have been insane. Let's look at his 13-year career. His first season in the NBA, 15 points per game, only 1.8 assists, but he had 20 rebounds. He was an absolute. He just won. He won. His rebounding numbers look like this: 22.7, 23, 24, 24, 23.5, 25, 24. Absolute stud on the boards. His points, never really that big. He did almost get 20 points per game in 61-62. He was just an absolute force. Always won 11 NBA championships in 13 years. You don't do that ever. There will never be a player like that ever again. And it's really hard. It's really hard to really rate Bill Russell and put him where he is, other than looking at the championship numbers and all the numbers he did put up. Because there's not a lot of film on Bill Russell. There is some, and I've watched probably all of it at least 4 times. I do love Bill Russell. Favorite player ever. But there's just something about it where it's like you really can't understand the greatness of Bill Russell by looking at the pure box scores. You look at his box scores, you look at Wilt Chamberlain's box scores, like, oh, Wilt Chamberlain was better. And you look at the accolades that both of them got, and like, yeah, well, they could be the same. But here's something telling. In 1961-62, that was the year that Wilt Chamberlain had 50 points per game, and I believe also 25 rebounds per game as well. And Oscar Robertson had his triple-double season. In that season, the most valuable player in the NBA that season was Bill Russell. His last 2 years in the NBA, he was a player coach at the same time. Won 2 NBA championships. He was just the ultimate competitor. There was a story of saying that he would throw up before every game, because he wanted to win so bad. And in games where he didn't throw up, the team got concerned because Bill didn't throw up before a game. I mean, like I said, it's so hard to really explain and really judge and really put Bill into an all-time list other than just knowing the history of the game and knowing how many people at the time had Bill Russell at number 1. And he was clearly the best player in a lot of people's mind for a very, 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 very long time. It was Bill Russell, Bill Russell, Bill Russell. So it's sort of a combination. You got to take their word for it. You got to kind of know the era, know really who his team was. He had a very, very good team. People say that he had like 7 Hall of Famers on the team. He did. You really look at those players. A lot of those players are in the Hall of Fame because they have those rings. I'm not trying to take anything away from those players, but a player like Thatch Sanders, a player like Tommy Heinsohn even, Bob Cousy obviously deserves, Sam Jones obviously deserves, John Havlicek obviously deserves, but a lot of those role players really you could make the case that they shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. If you look at their pure numbers and really put them against basketball players of any era, I believe Bill Russell could have played in an era, and he also changed the game defensively, blocking shots. And you see players blocking shots, and they send these moonshot volleyball spikes in the stand. That wasn't Bill Russell. Bill Russell would block your shot, but he'd keep it in bounds so he can get a rebound and start the fast break. He's one of the most athletic centers of all time, even for today. There was a video of him jumping from basically the free throw line and dunking a ball as a center. And yeah, people are getting more athletic. He was a little undersized. He was 6'9", so basically 6'10", 6'9". He's basically like LeBron size, height-wise. So he was doing all this stuff in the 60s, the 50s. So he was really, really, really ahead of his time. So the fast break offense sort of was the Celtics staple. Fast break offense. And this is even an era where the pace was super, super high. Anyway, I had Bill Russell at number 6. Number 5, another Celtics legend, Larry Bird. Now, here are Larry Bird's accolades and statistics. Hall of Fame, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, 1979, 1980 All-Rookie Team, and that year's Rookie of the Year, 2-time Finals MVP, 3-time NBA champion, 3-time All-Defensive member, 3-time league MVP, and 81-82 All-Star Game MVP. Had career averages of 24.3 points, 10 even 6.3 assists, shot 50% from the field the first career, 38% from 3, and 89% from the free throw line, and a 23.5 player efficiency rating. Now, Larry Bird is nicknamed Larry Legend for a reason. And one thing about Larry Bird is he really, his 8th straight 2 season, he hurt his back when we played 6 seasons. He was always on the floor, always everything. He was really the first point forward where he was averaging insane assist numbers. 3-time NBA champion. He was Boston forever. And I have 2 stories to tell about Larry Bird that just blow my mind every single time. The first story is in 1970. He was actually drafted in 78-79. Now, he was a rookie in 79-80. And there was a rule. Larry Bird, Red Auerbach, who was that time's GM of the Boston Celtics and coach of most of those championship runs back in the 50s and 60s, he went to Larry Bird at Indiana State and said, "Hey, join the draft this year. I'm going to draft you." Larry was like, "I don't want to come out of the draft. I want to stay my senior year. That's what I want to do." Red said, "Yeah, you can do that." There was a rule where if you drafted a player, you had a full year to sign that player or they get put back in the draft, and you basically forfeit your draft pick. And the Celtics had the 6th overall pick at the time. They convinced Larry to come into the draft, drafted him 6th, and let him go back to college and finish out his year where he had that legendary run in the tournament and played Magic Johnson in the final game. He then came to the Boston Celtics, and the rest is history. His first year averaged 21.3 points per game, 4.5 assists, 10.5 rebounds. He averaged 11 rebounds basically for the majority of his career. For the first 5 years of his career, he was up at 10.5, 11. Which is kind of crazy. On top of 5.5, 6 assists, a couple steals, block every now and then. He was an absolute player. And he had the handles. He could shoot from anywhere. He could score anywhere he wanted. The 3-point line, he was the first real player to be a 3-point sniper. He was just an absolute animal. Defensively, he was no slouch either. Offensively, one of the most complete players of all time. Now, the other story, I also want to thank my mother for this. Brandy, I know you're listening. Back when I was starting to play basketball, I wasn't really that great. I was always a football player, and I decided I wanted to play basketball. And I was having a really tough time. Couldn't really score. Didn't really do much. I got a lot of rebounds and played good defense. Other than that, really wasn't that good. And I remember I was like, this sucks. And I'm not having a good time. I put in a lot of work, and nothing's really happening. Mom came home, and she grew up in the 80s. She grew up watching this basketball. She lived basically my life. Like the life I want, my mother had. Thanks, Brandy. Love you. But anyway, she got to see Bird and Magic and Jordan all throughout her childhood. And NBA TV we had, and she taped the 85, I think 85 game 5, I believe. The game where Magic Johnson hit the baby hook and Larry Bird missed the corner 3 to end the game. And I believe in the series as well. Could be off on those numbers, but anyway, it's around that time. And she didn't tell me what the outcome of the game was. First time I ever watched the game, first time I ever heard about the game. And she knew that I loved Larry Bird. She knew that I knew Larry Bird was a really, really good player. And so we watched the game. It was a great game. And then Magic Johnson jump hook. I was like, oh, here we go. Larry Bird's going to hit the game-winning shot. Larry Bird got the shot in the corner, missed. And I was like, wow. My mom goes, why did you show me that game? I was like, I don't know. My mom goes, because Larry Bird lost that game. And Larry Bird did not give up. And the next season, I believe they won the NBA championship in 86, 87. And that really put in my head that you have to work hard and hard and hard. And even though you could even be the best player in the world, and you still have to work hard, something you love, especially in sports, which is, what I love. So thank you, my mother, for that. Always kept that game in my head. Always kept that lesson in my head. And that's another story about Larry Bird. And he was just the best. And Larry Bird, salute to you, number 5. Number 4, one of the greatest statistical players of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now, here's his resume. Hall of Fame, 19-time All-Star, 1-time rebounding champ, 6-time All-MVP, NBA champ, 6-time NBA champ, 6-time MVP, 4-time block champ, 2-time scoring champ, 15-time All-NBA, 11-time All-Defense, 69-70 Rookie of the Year, 69-70 All-Rookie Team, 2-time Finals MVP as well. The all-time leader in points scored in a career, 25 points per game, roughly 24.6, 11.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 56% from the field, 72% from the free throw line, 24.6 PER. Now here are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His block numbers and steal numbers didn't get tracked until his 5th season in the NBA. And in that season, he averaged 3.5 blocks. So he could have a lot more blocks than we really know. But we think Shaq came out the box, an absolute stud. For the first, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years of his career, Kareem averaged over 20 points per game. He was an absolute force to be reckoned with. His first season in the NBA averaged 29 points, 14.5 rebounds, 4 steals. Absolute legend. Next season, 31.7 and 16. Next season, 34.8 and 4.6 assists and 16.6 rebounds. He is one of the statistically greatest players of all time. I mean, you really don't get better statistically than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did, and he won. He won one in Milwaukee his second year in the league. Came back and won a few with the Lakers in their dynasty run, teamed up with Magic Johnson. He was an absolute stud, and he scored the hook shot. His sky hook shot is probably one of the, if not the most unstoppable shots of all time. I mean, there's not much more to say. Like, he was the best for a very, very, very long time. It was Wilton Bill, and then it was Kareem for a very, very long time. The 70s and good amount, and the 70s and a little bit of the 80s, he was the best player in the league. Then you add Bird and Magic in there, and then it was them, and then it was Jordan, Hakeem, David Robinson as well. Patrick Ewing. Then it was the Kobe's, Shaq's, LeBron's, the D Wade's, and now it's into the Steph Curry's, LeBron still. Tim Duncan in the 2000s as well, Kevin Garnett. He was, for a very, 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 very long time, the best player in basketball, and for a lot of people, he was the best player in basketball history. For a lot of people, still, he's the best player in basketball history. A lot of the older players who got the people saw him play, and as we mentioned, a lot of these players I never got to see play, which is sad, especially how much I love the game of basketball and how much knowledge I believe that I do have in the game of basketball, and sort of historian, or you could say. He was an absolute tank. Had 4 blocks per game in a season twice. There's just not much more to say. He scored phenomenally. Great defender as well with all the blocks and the steals he got. His assist numbers were very, very, very good as well. Like we mentioned, that 3.5, 4, 5 range is very, very, very good for big men. He averaged 4, just around 3.5 for his career. He had a few seasons, almost 6. 6-time MVP, the most of all time as well. He was just an absolute tank. Shot quite well from the free throw line as well, especially later on in his career. Never was really great over 80, but never really would dip below 60. 65 was worse. And other than he was hovering near 70, over 70 in that 75 range. His field goal percentage, like we said, no one really could really stop him. So he was shooting 60% basically his entire career. Played until the age of 41. Retired in 1988-89. Was an all-star in every year but one, in which he played 62 games. Started in every game of his career as well. Absolute legend, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar finds himself at number 4. The number 3 is a personal pick. I don't want to say personal pick because you can make it. You make the argument. Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson resume goes as follows. Hall of Fame. 12-time All-Star, 4-time assist champ, 2-time steal champ, 5-time NBA champ, 10-time All-NBA, 79-80 All-Rookie Team, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 3-time Finals MVP, 3-time League MVP, number 32 for the Los Angeles Lakers. Career averages of 19.5 points, 7.9 rebounds, 7.2 rebounds, 11.2 assists, 52% from the field, around 30% from 3, not the greatest shooters, 85% from the free throw line, and 24.1 player efficiency rating. Now, Magic Johnson changed the game. Now, as we mentioned in the 60s, it was very running gun pace, and Magic Johnson and the Showtime Lakers brought it back. For my money, 86-87 Los Angeles Lakers are the greatest team of all time. Coming from a Celtics fan, I know. That's just how I see it. Number 1 overall pick in 1979-80. Averaged 18 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds right out of the gate. And he did not look back. I mean, 18, 21, 18, 16, 17, 18, 18, 23, 19, 22, 22, 19. Did not play from 1991 to 1995 because of the HIV virus, and came back in 95-96 and played around 30-somewhat games. Did pretty good for it. Magic Johnson was an absolute tank. He ran the floor like no one in NBA history. The best passer in NBA history. The greatest vision ever. He was just built to play basketball. He was my number 2 basketball player for a while. We'll get to number 2 and number 1 for this. Is how lists go. He was an absolute tank. I mean, I've seen so many highlights of him, so many games of him in the 80s and the 90s, most of the 80s. He just did it. I mean, he went to the finals almost every year of his career, which I think people don't really talk about that. He did lose a few, but you're going to lose a few. His rookie year in the final, one of the greatest finals performance of all time, when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sprained his ankle, could not play in Game 6 against the the Philadelphia 76ers. Magic Johnson stepped in and played center, scored 40, I think it's 40, 15, and 9 as a rookie to clinch the series. Absolute greatest game of all time, playoffs-wise, finals-wise. And then his assist numbers: 7.3 his first year, 8.6 his second, 9.5 his third, 10.5, 13.1, 12.6, 12.6, 12.2, 11.9, 12.8, 11.2, 12.5. Average 11 assists per game for his career. Like I said, ran the break like no other. He was 6'9 point guard, 6'10 point guard. He basically was the same size as Bill Russell, just a point guard. MVPs to show it. The championships to show. He was just the man, and I believe he was number 3 all time. Number 3 all time, just edging out Larry Bird, just edging out Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it shows. I mean, obviously his HIV illness is something that really derailed his career, and I feel like him and Bird would have been potentially the greatest players of all time if their careers did not get cut short. Because if they played on a little bit, Jordan would have to wait just a little bit longer. You see in 90, 91, Magic was only 31 years old and dropping still 20, 12 and a half, and 7. He could still play at an older age. So I think we'd be looking at Jordan a little bit differently than we are now if Magic and Larry did not retire so quickly. Let's recap the list before we get on to 2 and 1. I feel like you guys know what 2 and 1 are going to be. Recap so far. Number 10, Shaquille O'Neal. Number 8, wow, I can't count. Number 9, Hakeem Olajuwon. Number 8, Kobe Bryant. Number 7, Bill Russell. Number 6, nope, wow. Let's start over. I can't count. Number 10, Shaq. Number 9, Hakeem. Number 8, Kobe Bryant. Number 7, Tim Duncan. Number 6, Bill Russell. Number 5, Larry Bird. Number 4, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Number 3, Magic Johnson. Number 2, the closest thing to Magic Johnson, LeBron James. LeBron James' resume goes as follows. Will be a Hall of Famer when everything's said and done. 14-time All-Star, 3-time NBA champ, 6-time All-Defensive member, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 4-time regular season MVP. 1-time scoring champion, 4-time All-NBA performer, Rookie of the Year in 03-04 and on the All-Rookie First Team, 3-time Finals MVP. Resume for career stats goes as followed: 27 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, 7.2 assists, 50% from the field, 35 from 3, and 74 from the free throw line, and a 27.7 PER. It's LeBron James. And say what you want, LeBron James will forever and always be the most scrutinized and analyzed athlete to ever live. He will always be that, and he is that, was that, and will continue to be that. There will not be another athlete more heavily scrutinized and put under a microscope than LeBron James will be. And this is because, and I don't like LeBron because I'm a Celtics fan, and I do respect LeBron for what he is, but it doesn't mean I have to like him. But anyway, he has never had a bad season. He's averaged 21 every year of his career. The lowest, he's averaged 21 and then 25 twice and then 26 to 30 throughout then. He has been the epitome of an absolute one of the greatest players of all time. Since he stepped onto the court, his presence was felt. 21 points, 5.5, 6. And then since then, he's averaging 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and the 6s and the 7s, 8s a couple years. This last year might be his greatest season of all time. Which personally I believe 20 year was it? 2012, 2013 was the greatest season he's ever had, when he averaged 27, 1 block a game, 1.7 steals, 7.3 assists, 8 rebounds, which at that time was a career high. Which both at that time were career high, other than his 8.6 assists per game in 2010, which probably people think was his greatest year. Just the shooting, 40% from 3, was a lot higher than he's never hit that 40 mark since, and I don't know if he ever will again. 75% from the free throw line, which was one of his best in his career. His field goal percentage was 56. Like, he is just an absolute tank. And LeBron James is number 2 on this list for a reason. He does everything. He does everything on the court. He's the second best passer and playmaker of all time. He's a good rebounder at 7.5 for his career. Not as good as Larry Bird, but still a good rebounder. He can score basically anywhere. I don't know where he just learned how to shoot threes all of a sudden. He's shooting 37% right now. He is 34 in his 16th season, and he is doing all of this. And he could very well be like the greatest statistical player of all time. I know we give that honor to Kareem earlier, but he could pass Kareem. He could be top 5 in assists, top 5 in, I don't know where he was rebounding wise, probably not because of all the great bigs and how much rebounds they got earlier on in the day. But assists, steals, blocks, he does it all. And I think if you take 2011 and the choke job he did, which he did choke quite hard in that, but you do take that block to skip Cleveland championship in 2016, there is something there. And that moment, which even though I hated it because LeBron got a title, I don't want LeBron getting titles. I don't like LeBron. Paul Pierce all day. But that moment is probably one of the, if not the greatest sports moment I might ever see, and a lot of people might ever see. Just how significant of a play that was, and then the Kyrie 3 to hit it after in that next possession. I'm grateful for that, thankful for that, and LeBron James will always be. I started watching basketball around 2008, 2009 when LeBron was starting. Well, wasn't starting. When LeBron was starting to become the man and the best player in basketball. And it was a fun ride, and this is going to be fun. Now he's on the Lakers, and he has a couple more years left, a few more years dominance left. Now LeBron James number 2, and I think that little 5-minute spiel does not give him enough justice, enough credit. Number 2, sorry Joe, I have him number 2. Number 1, drum roll please, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, Hall of Famer, 14-time All-Star, 3-time Steal champ, 11-time All-NBA performer, 10-time scoring champ, 9-time All-Defense, 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 87-88 Defensive Player of the Year, the 85 All-Rookie Team, the 85 Rookie of the Year, 5-time MVP, 6-time NBA champ, 6-time Finals MVP, 30 points per game for his career, 6.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 49% from the field, basically 50% from the field, 33% from 3, 84% from the free throw line, rounding up on the halves, 27.9 player efficiency rating. Oh man, Michael Jordan, the player that, the greatest player of all time. Oh, why don't you look at this? People say, but LeBron James is a better all-around basketball player. And yeah, maybe. Look at this season. I want to show you this season. In 1988-89, coming off a Defensive Player of the Year, mind you, Michael Jordan averaged 32.5 points per game leading the league, 3 steals, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds a game, while shooting 54% from the field and not the greatest three-point shooter. Why is that so important? After that's when Scottie Pippen got introduced in the starting lineup, and Michael Jordan did not do a lot of the playmaking duties. 8 assists per game and 8 rebounds per game showed that if you take Jordan and put him in LeBron's situation and have basically what LeBron does for an offense, make Jordan do that for an offense, he was one of the best to ever do it. 6-time MVP, 5-time MVP, 6-time Finals MVP, 6-time NBA champion. Look at this stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 years. Look at the stretch of years. Points per game. 37, 35, 33, 34, 32, 30, 33. Retired. Came back basically 2 years later. 30, 29, 29. The age of 32, 33, and 34 after taking 2 years off to play baseball. This dude came back, dropped 33 times with 6 assists and 6 rebounds and 4 assists with 2 steals and a half a block a game. He's the greatest. I mean, there will never be another one. At the age of 38, dropped 22, 30. Never had a season under 20 points per game. Even in a season where he broke his leg and then came back, only played 17 games. It's just Michael Jordan, guys. It's just Michael Jordan. So anyway, that's my top 10 players of all time. Shaquille O'Neal, Hakeem Olajuwon, Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, LeBron James, and Michael Jordan. So, before we wrap it up, I want to say thank you everyone for watching. I understand both streams had a little bit of issues, so everyone who caught it on YouTube, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Next week, we will not be on air on YouTube because it is Christmas. And for everyone listening on EC Radio, we're going to take a month hiatus from EC Radio. And like I said, I will still be doing the show on YouTube. So if you want to follow along throughout the winter, throughout the month of January, most of the month of January, the Cover 3 Radio Show, THECOVER, number 3 radio show on YouTube. Find that up. You can watch any of the previous ones I've streamed, previous episodes I've streamed. You have a few already up there on the channel, a few from this summer, right before I got back to school and whatnot. So you can look at those. If you missed the Tonight Show, you can go back. If you were part of the beginning live stream, you can cut off and you didn't come back and join. Go back and watch the rest of the list. It's one of the longer ones, an hour, full hour. Anyway, thank everybody for watching. Be sure to follow the Twitter at @the_cover_3. And also, if you want to hear more of me, check out CelticsPulse.com and Celtics Pulse on Twitter, where I do a Celtics podcast as well. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching. Have a happy holidays, and I will see you guys next month or in 2 weeks. So in 2 we trust everybody. Have a wonderful day.